greeting someone by name is a really critical part of building a relationship with them. So I can't always remember all the names. I rely on name tags as often as I can, ideally prepared before they arrive. If you have regulars or any sort of RSVP or registration, it's no problem to have extra name tags. So you can always create them on the fly, or if your synagogue or allows, or if your program is not actually on Shabbat itself, you can make those name tags in real time. There's a tremendous value to looking at someone and calling them by name. So I'll show you how I sing it. There's a few modifications that I want to point out. So the first is I like to say things that are true. So if it's Friday morning, I'll sing the words slightly differently than Friday night. So the song was written by Paul Zim. Shabbat is here, Shabbat is here. I'm so glad that Shabbat is here. The candle's burning bright, it's Friday night. I'm so glad that Shabbat is here. But if it's Friday morning, I'll sing, the candles will burn bright on Friday night. I'm so glad that Shabbat is here, which is just me and my very literal self. So I'll say, Shabbat Shalom to Joni, Shabbat Shalom. And I make sure that the crowd knows that we're inviting them to respond when I say Shabbat Shalom to the person. So if they don't, I'll slow down, I'll practice. I'll be like, oh, let's do a few practice rounds. Shabbat Shalom to Emily. Everybody else, Shabbat Shalom to me. Ready? Shabbat Shalom. All right, now we're going to do it in tempo. Shabbat Shalom to Emily. Shabbat Shalom. See, there you got it. All right, now let's greet those kiddos. So I'll do a real quick teach like that. Shabbat Shalom to David. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom to whoever. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom to whoever. Shabbat Shalom. I'll always make sure to name the leadership of whoever I am. Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi Shmushi Face. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, Cantor La La La. Shabbat Shalom. If there's a religious school director or a family engagement director, just anybody who's in the room that the people should know about, I'll say, Shabbat Shalom to our preschool director, Stacy, and like do a real quick intro and everybody say Shabbat Shalom. Now, if it's a giant crowd and you can't do individuals, I'll say, Shabbat Shalom to the mommies, Shabbat Shalom to the daddies, Shabbat Shalom to the grandmas, Shabbat Shalom to the grandpas, Shabbat Shalom to the kiddos, Shabbat Shalom to the babies. And just sort of do categories like that. I also make sure that I don't use possessive pronouns for those parts of families because not everybody has them. So instead of saying like my mommy, I'll say the mommies because not all kids have all of those parts. And I hope you take this song and enjoy.